Do you remember the first time you were ever allowed to run the sewing machine yourself? Didn't you feel like you had won a prize? And I get just as excited today when I have learned a new technique and see it in a finished project. Today we're going to share new techniques step by step, get a refresher on skills learned long ago, and see another way to use fabric to give today's garments a fashionable edge. I am delighted that you chose to spend time with me in my sewing room. We have many things to learn, so let's get started. This is a beautiful tailored blouse that you can have so much fun using your machine embroidery and some of the decorative stitches on your sewing machine. There's a little beautiful cameo of machine embroidery, a green, sort of a turquoise green, and an ecru. This is such an interesting technique. It's a bridging stitch where you have a panel of fabric in between, and using a bridging stitch on your sewing machine, you have connected them. This has one of the most interesting buttonhole treatments I've ever seen. Machine embroidery with a little bit bigger buttonhole and 2 buttons used to fasten the top. And then the pretty turquoise buttons with traditional buttonholes down the back. Let's see the magic of how this is done. The 2 strips you start with, you need to use a narrow hem foot. Of course, you can fold it down twice, but if you have a narrow hem foot, that's the magic. And you go ahead and hem both pieces. Then using a blind hem foot, that separates the 2 pieces because you do have to keep them separated. Now, if you do not have a blind hem foot, you can always take a shish kebab stick and tape it down to your sewing machine, and then that will also separate your fabric because you have to keep it separated. Then after you separate your fabric with either a blind hem foot or a shish kebab stick, you choose a decorative stitch such as a feather stitch or something pretty, and then go ahead and stitch that stitch and you make that beautiful treatment. I'm so happy to have as my guest today my very dear friend June Mellinger. June is Director of Education for Brother International. June, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Martha.
And thanks for that beautiful blouse you did.
It was a lot of fun. It really was. I got to enjoy using the feet that come with my machine, and I also got to try some new techniques. And it's a new, fresh look, I think, for a blouse.
Oh, I love it. Very tailored and very pretty.
Yeah,
very wearable.
Right. Yeah, very wearable, and that's important, right?
Yes.
So let's go over that one more time so
Okay.
that our viewers really understand what we did. It was important for me to create the 2 rows of narrow hem for a base, a security base to connect the stitches to. And I used the narrow hemmer foot. And you know, at the bottom of the foot, there's a channel that the fabric actually folds into as it's sewing. And in a minute, we'll run the machine and see exactly how that works. But it really, really makes a big difference. And then, of course, the next step was to have the fabric separated, 2 channels of fabric separated, and we used the blind hem stitch foot, which is adjustable, but that sets a nice separation right down the center between the channels. And if I don't have one of those, but boy, I'd want to get one, I'll be using my shish kebab stick. But that blind hem stitch foot has a lot of different uses, again, not just for blind hems, but also for separating. And then, of course, we selected a decorative stitch, and that stitch now did form right over those channels of the narrow hemmer. So now they're really going to stand up and give nice, a really nice detail, actually. Not only the stitch, but the hem itself shows. So that's really kind of cool. So let's look at the bed of the machine as we start to sew. And you see I have the narrow hemmer attached, and I have a centered needle position, and it's about a 3.5 millimeter stitch length. And as I sew, the fabric gets folded in the channel and stitches. And remember, the needle never ever moves. It's your fabric that moves. So if you're guiding right from the beginning, then the needle's doing the rest of the work for you.
Folds it under once, folds it under again, there
you go.
Wonderful.
And a machine like this has a built-in scissor. So I just press the button and I actually trim the thread, and there's my finished result. And then the next step, of course, was to put the blind hem stitch foot on, and I have a snap-on foot here, so I just snap that on, and I go into the decorative stitches, and I pick one of my favorite stitches here. And I simply, once I see the stitch I'm picking, I have that there. And these two pieces of fabric are set right beneath the blind hem stitch.
I love that foot.
Isn't that so cool?
Yeah, it holds it apart.
It holds it right apart for me. And as I start to sew, it does the work for me. And when I'm all done, I have a look that looks just like this. And I think that your viewers will really be intrigued by how many different things the sewing machine can do for them. If they just fool around and practice a little bit.
It looks like it was done by H-A-N-D.
Indeed. I love that.
That's hand. June, that is so fascinating. And now June has some wonderful sewing inspirations to share with you. June, this is gorgeous. Tell us about it.
Well, Martha, that is a really great quilt that could be a wall hanging table covering, and it's really unique looking because it has a lot of use of decorative stitches, those sewer's jewels that you like to talk about, metallic threads, the diamonds, and also the metallic threads, and the use of the twin needle with the serpentine stitch. It really is kind of different. And what I really like about it too is the fact that, you know, sometimes we like to try different stitches, but we don't know where quite to put them. And here I could make a big square, cut it in triangles, and use it to offset a beautiful centered machine embroidery medallion in the middle.
Oh,
and the next
beautiful.
quilt in my job at the company I work for, we'll be doing some sewing classes in the fall. And we'll be teaching how to use a circular sewing attachment. And a lot of companies have that today, where you can have an attachment that goes onto your machine and it allows you to create those beautiful circled items. But ours lets you do decorative stitches, fringes, and so forth. So it really looks very cool. And of course, for the edges, we have the 5mm width decorative stitches. So it's really a great project. And again, a sampler. Have fun with it.
And the beautiful metallic threads.
The metallic threads.
This is a purchase blouse.
And more blouses. Sometimes people purchase blouses or make them themselves, and they add some decorative stitches. You can cut the seams into the blouses and add those pretty stitches, and it really makes something plain look jazzy.
Do you know that there are even a lot of men's shirts? I have noticed in the fine men's shops that have
beautiful
hang on the outside and shirts. Yeah. Oh, this is so pretty.
They have that the look of hand sewing along the lapels, and very pretty. And there's another one. Again, more what might have been cross stitches. Now it's become a decorative stitch. So different
good looking.
Very good.
Purchase the blouse and have fun with your sewing machine.
You can purchase
or make either
yourself,
one.
Either way.
But the quick way is to purchase.
Oh, sure is. It's a good basis.
And now June has a wonderful sew booking idea for you. June, I cannot wait for you to show our viewers what you've done with sew booking or scrapbooking.
Well, you know, there's plenty of that going on today, and there are lots of different mediums, whether it's on paper, sewing on paper, or printing on paper, or fabrics. And today we're going to talk about printing on fabric. And you know, printable fabrics are very popular today. They're easy enough to do with the printers. And this is an 8.5 by 11 size, but I understand that they also come in 12 by 12 printing as well. But you have to have a printer made for that size of printing on fabric. And this is a cotton, but they come in silks and organzas and all different types of things. And you just want to be sure that you set the printer so that it's on the vivid setting, so the colors are striking when they print out. And here is something that I found. Many of the sewing companies today have free designs and so forth on their websites. And here was one where you had not only a free embroidery design, perhaps, but also free scrapbooking. So I could actually print out this printed fabric here. It looks like swirls and daisies and the butterfly. And then I inserted my own photograph of a butterfly that I took. And then I added an embroidered butterfly. So it really has lots of different media attention here. And of course I used a stabilizer. And this is a little bit, let's say, dense or stiff, this printable fabric. So I actually put this paper stabilizer in my hoop, and then I sprayed some temporary adhesive to the back of this paper and stuck it right there. And I didn't even have to hoop up the printed fabric. And here is another idea where I took a cute picture of my granddaughters and I put them all together and I put the sunflower in the middle. But what I really wanted to show you, and again, here's the fabric, the backing, so that it tears off, and now you have this very supple printed fabric. And again, the embroidery, perhaps you've embroidered some butterflies. This is turned around here, but butterflies, so that you can add that to a wedding picture or whatever. And here, just as we're finishing up, we'll talk about what this project really entailed. I wanted to be able to have the statement, Easter is here, and I have the picture of my granddaughter and daughter-in-law, and I wanted the bunny to be right there next to the R and the E. Well, in the machine that we have here today, we have the snowman feature, and actually he's like a positioning marker, and I could actually put him right there, this snowman, placed him right there, and the machine actually recognized where the sticker was, twisted the design around, and placed it exactly where I needed to be. And of course, you know, there are lots of machine embroidery designs out there, but you can have them all be multiple colors or just the outline. And in the end, you have a beautiful design. And I also did 2 of these pieces of fabric together, so now I have an actual page, and I could make a soft book for the grandchildren if I wanted to as well.
That would be a great
But I
idea.
just sewed them together, and I have a very pretty look. So I think that was a great gift.
So it was a great gift. Thank you so much. And now I have a section for you called "And Sew On." I love little slips, especially made to go with each little girl's outfit, or even with a little boy's christening dress. This slip is adorable. It is a very simple Swiss Batiste slip, and it is lined completely, and it is finished completely, including the buttons and buttonholes, but it has no trim, but the slip is finished totally. Let's have a little bit of fun and add some trim to it. This is the same little slip, which we have done a little bit of machine embroidery, white on white on the center front. We have added some gathered lace edging, stitched down with a beautiful wing needle pin stitch or Madeira applique stitch, or actually it's also called a point de Paris stitch. There's a little bit of gathered lace edging and a little bit of straight-ish lace edging around the neckline and around the arm's eye. And once again, on the hem, you can actually use absolutely straight lace edging. Let's see how the easy way is to apply those lace edgings and make that slip just a little bit fancier. This is the finished slip here. You can see the French lace, and most of you probably know that there's a gathering thread in French lace. I'm going to take the length of gathering the lace that I would like, push up the gathers. It makes it a little bit easier after you distribute those gathers if you kind of pin it to a board of some kind. And if I were going to just put this right down on top of the slip, which I am, and gathered, it kind of might spaghetti around, or it might be hard to hold. Let me show you a little trick. This tape that really has stripes on it is originally from the quilting industry, but we use it a lot with French lace. Now let me just show you what you do. After you distribute your gathers, you simply put some of this tape down, and it will hold your gathers. If you will look right here, you will see that we've distributed the gathers, put that tape that almost looks like a tiger tape, put it down there, and now then I've pinned it, and I'm ready to do my wing needle entredo, except I'm not going to do wing needle entredo. I'm going to do a wing needle pin stitch. Now I am using a 120 wing needle, but you can use a smaller 100 wing needle, or you can use just a regular big needle, a big universal needle. I'm now going to do the Madeira, and you know what, I am going to take the pins out. I'm going to do the Madeira applique, or the pin stitch, or the point de Paris stitch with the wing needle, and this wonderful tape just holds it down so nicely. You pin it, of course, and then I'm using a stabilizer behind it. Let me get another pin out. I actually love to do hem stitching, Madeira applique, point de Paris. It's such a pretty way to finish off a little slip, and it's very easy to do, especially when I hold my gathered lace with this tape. Absolutely wonderful. Now, let's go on and see what else you can do. With water-soluble basting tape, I'm going to put this lace around the neckline, and I'm going to call it straight lace, although it really isn't quite straight. I'm going to give just a little bit of a pull. I want it to look straight, but since I'm going around a curve, it's going to need to have just a little bit of pull. Now the tape is straight, so I'm going to need, first of all, to put it on in little sections. I have this section, this length, because I'm going to try to make straight tape go around neckline. No problem. Or you baste it down, little piece at a time, the water-soluble basting tape. Then when I get ready to put the lace down, the sort of straight lace, I will pull this piece off. Take the lace with just a little bit of a gathering pull. Put it down, going just a little bit over the edge. I will put it down, and then I will do my Madeira applique or my pin stitch. Let me bring back this beautiful little finished slip to show you. You see how the straight lace is right around the neckline and the arm's eye, and the gathered lace is right around the yoke of this little slip. And that's a way to make a wonderfully beautiful little slip become even more wonderful and even more beautiful. And now I have an antique technique to share with you. On a cold January morning, I was in London at Portobello Road looking for wonderful things to bring back to share with you. I found this very, very simple dress. Absolutely was enchanted by this little antique dress. As you can see, it has nothing but wing needle entredeaux or hem stitching all the way across the front. That is the only embellishment on the top. Well, it has a little ruffle, but the beautiful wing needle entredeaux stitching. And then if you will go down to the hem, I was enchanted with this hem. It's folded up, and the only hemming techniques is just little French knots, little blue French knots. Absolutely beautiful, and that's the only way the hem is put in. Two simple techniques on a beautiful dress. Now let's just see how easy it is to make a bodice exactly like this, and it's so simple and so pretty. First of all, on your fabric, you're going to draw off your lines, however far apart you want these lines. These are about 1 inch apart. Then get a tearaway stabilizer, put it behind, and as you can see, I've done 1 row of the wing needle entredeaux stitching. If your machine has wing needle entredeaux like this one does, all you do is hold the fabric. I'm using a 120 wing needle and the entredeaux stitch, and I'm stitching the wing needle entredeaux, and I stitch along each one of those lines. Absolutely, that is all there was to the embellishment. Okay, after you stitch those lines on your square piece of fabric, stitch all of those lines. It is now time to draw the yoke off, and simply, well, you're going to have to take your stabilizer off, cut out the yoke, and you're ready to construct the dress. Let me bring this back one more time just to share with you how beautiful the little yoke is. And as you can see, except for a little tiny ruffle around the bias neckline, the only embellishment on the bodice of this little silk dress is that beautiful wing needle entredeaux. And this happens to be a pretty big wing needle entredeaux, so I did it with a 120 needle. Now I have some designer techniques to share with you. I'm so happy to have as my guest today, Kathy Barnard. Kathy is the editor of So Beautiful magazine. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. We've got something fun to share today.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, why don't you show the
It is fun.
technique.
Oh, Kathy, and this is called extended applique.
Yes.
All right, now look, see the fish here? It looks like this little fish just kind of swam off the bottom. And let me show you the little fish is swimming on the back too. Isn't that cute?
It is cute. It's one of those things where you say, oh my goodness, how'd they do that?
Yeah, okay. And then we have another darling little dress that the flower just magically appears off the bottom. And let me hold it up so our viewers can see.
It looks like the print, like the skirt print just drips right off the dress.
Oh yeah, we love that.
I love
Show
it.
us your magic.
Okay, this one is from Betsy Sherman and Joyce Yarling. And first, it's rather easy technique. First, you want to prepare your skirt. You can actually do this after the whole garment is constructed.
Okay.
Or you can construct your skirt with your band first and then do your applique. It's up to you how you want to do it. But you want to finish out your skirt with your skirt band, your contrast colored band. Then you want to cut out a piece of the print that's going to match and blend in well. You see how that just kind of blends in? So we've cut that roughly around the flowers. Turn it over on the back and you apply fusible web, paper-backed fusible web, but you want to leave your paper on at this point. Next, you want to make sure that the back side of this that's going to be hanging off the contrast band, you want to make sure that that has some fabric behind it. Now you can cut out another flower and use that as the back side, or you can use a piece of the contrast band as the back side. But in order to do that, you're going to peel back just some of the paper from your web and fuse a piece of fabric on the back side. And this is the part that's going to be hanging off the bottom of our skirt. Next, you want to cut out with some sharp, small scissors, cut out along the outline of your fabric print. Again, we still have the paper webbing on the back. You're going to peel this off and place this on your skirt, fuse it down, place a piece of water-soluble stabilizer on the back side. Then you're going to set your machine for a zigzag just to stitch down around the outline. Now I like this look right here. I would stop right here, and we've used, of course, the matching thread is the green on the blue flower and the pink on the pink flower so that it would blend more into the fabric. But I like how this is not a heavy satin stitch and it just looks just like the print. You may want to go back over this edge just to make sure that you've done a nice edge on that raw edge, but the webbing underneath is going to keep that from fraying. Now next, if you want to add the next touch, set your machine for a satin stitch and then stitch around that outline once again in the same colors. And as you'll see down here, it makes a little heavier outline. But in my opinion, this is a little bit heavier and shows up more like an applique, whereas the previous sample, it just blends in with the fabric and it makes it look like the fabric print's dripping off. But isn't that great? Yeah.
It really is. And Kathy, when I was in high school, Mother made me the most beautiful peach flowered, actually it reminds me of this fabric over here, sundress. And the way she used to do this kind of thing is you mixed up flour and water. There were none of these products, and then you kind of let it dry, and then you would zigzag around it. But Mother did that same technique for me when I was in high school. Well, I didn't either until, I mean, I had forgotten about it until I saw this.
And don't we remember those dresses our mothers made for
Mother,
us?
the
They're so
dresses Mother
special.
made for me. Oh,
Yeah.
I can remember almost every one of them, and I can remember sitting at the sewing machine and watching her create that magic, and that's what our viewers are doing for their children and their grandchildren when they make these beautiful little outfits that they'll remember long after they're gone.
Isn't that why we sew?
Heirloom sewing.
That's
That's
right.
exactly why we sew, making memories.
That's right.
And now I have a piece from my vintage collection to share with you. This is a magnificent little white dress, very long dress, not excessively long, but longer than some. I want you to notice that it has the scoop neck, as so many of my pieces do, which means that it was probably 1860 to 1880 or 1890. This little dress is kind of unusual in that it has a puff sleeve, which I believe this means it's a little bit more toward the 1890s, maybe even 1900. It has, of course, the V-shaped panel in the front with the little insertion on the edge. The skirt is truly beautiful. It has sets of 1, 2, 3, 4 tucks, and then it has a little panel of the edging, 1, 2, 3, 4, and another little gathered panel of the edging, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes down to the bottom with just a little gathered ruffle on the bottom. Now I want to show you something on the back. This little dress, you know, they always have the casings with the strings. This is not the original string to the dress, I don't think, nor neither is this. This actually looks like yarn. So apparently the original drawstrings were ruined. Now there's something I want to show you on this dress. I want to give you a quick little lesson on cleaning antiques. This little dress has several rust stains. I did not clean it before I started the sewing room, because I want to tell you how many times these little stains will come out. I soak these dresses, if they're in good condition, and this one is, in a mop bucket, a plastic mop bucket, that's a bucket about this tall, of water with about a half a cup of all fabric bleach. Do not use chlorine bleach ever, 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 but all fabric bleach, the kind that's safe for fabrics. And I will put this whole dress in there, and I will soak it several days, and then I will change the water and make some more water and a half a cup of all fabric bleach, and then probably after several days that rust stain will come out and it will be nice and white. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room today. I would truly like to invite you to come back next time.